So hello, everybody, and thank you for joining our Hospitality and Ancillary Services UTM Sustainability 2022 event, OZZI, the closed loop system, changing the world from disposable to reusable, one meal at a time. Hospitality and Ancillary Services is thrilled to bring our partners forward this year to share their experience with our community. We are very pleased to welcome Deb Nelson from OZZI, who will take us through the impacts on our environment by using the OZZI reusable containers, from our impact on water use, greenhouse gas emissions, waste hauling, and more. She will also be discussing the newly launched OZZI Container Take Back program. This event is scheduled from 3 to 3:30 and will be an interactive event, so please feel free to unmute and join in the conversation anytime. So without further ado, I will pass it over to Deb.
Thanks, Sarah. We really are excited to be here, and we're really happy with what you're doing with the program. And hopefully we'll share some of that impact with you today. As Sarah said, please feel welcome to ask questions at any time. It's not at all meant to be formal, but what I'd like to do is share not only your impact, but what's going on with the program altogether. You know, we call it a closed loop technology solution for sustainable dining, really for two reasons. One, Sarah mentioned, and that the containers, when they reach the end of the life, we'll take them back. More on that later. But the other reason is that you're running what we call the full expression of the program. So you actually have the containers in use, you're taking them back, you have accountability for the program, and that's where you really start to see the largest gains. As Sarah mentioned, our passion, our mission really is to change the world from disposables to reusables, one meal at a time. It's funny, the last 2 days I've been at a huge corporate headquarters down in South Carolina, and they're trying to kind of reverse engineer what we're doing, is that they want to change the entire world at the outset, and we're kind of doing it one meal at a time. And so the work that you're doing is extremely significant. I like to use my little OZZI man here to kind of show people what the impact is and how simple that it really can be. So I'll kind of go over that. But before I do, here's an interactive part. It's completely, there will be prizes available, and you can choose to participate or not. If you're too shy to raise your hand, you can put the letter of the response that you believe it is in the chat, and I'll get the prizes to Sarah efficiently. So first quiz. Which feature of a reusable meal container, which I just happen to have next to me, have the most significant impact on sustainability? I think you actually use this container. I've got several at my disposal. So which has the biggest impact on sustainability? Is it the fact that it's made out of 20 to 30% recycled parts? Is it the fact that Ecolab has actually tested every single one of them, every style, for up to 1,000 commercial washes? We're talking that high heat setting and everything. And then those, you know, the latches and the hinges continue to work. Is it the fact that it's now closed loop? I'm very proud to say we're the only ones who will take their containers back at the end of life, which is significant. I do not want to leave any O2GOs out there. Is it the fact that NSF has certified the container? I just learned how they certify a container for safety. Believe it or not, they take a very sharp knife and they scratch the bottom. Then they take lard, you heard me, lard, and they smear it on the scratch mark that they purposely make. They put it through the commercial dishwasher, and then they look to see, has any lard been left anywhere on the container, including the scratch marks. All of our containers, at a very high expense to us, have been approved by NSF for safety standards. Is it the fact that it's made in the USA? Is it the fact that it's freezer and microwave safe? So Sarah, I don't know if you can see chat. I'm looking for chat here, or if anybody wants to raise their hand for very valuable prizes. What is the most significant feature that makes it biggest impact on sustainability? Anyone?
We have.
I should have shown prizes.
Can you see the chat, Deb?
I'm looking for it. Oh, it's over here. Sorry, I have multiple screens. We have a B, and a C. And C is absolutely right. So the most important thing that you can do for sustainability, especially if you're in my world of plastic, a lot of people hate plastic and therefore hate us, is that you have to provide a way to bring plastic back. A lot of people in this world will talk about using glass, using tin. If you can imagine, if you've used these containers, carrying this around in a glass version or a tin version, or handling it if it's hot, and obviously a tin you can't microwave. Plastic makes a lot of sense, but the way plastic makes a lot of sense is, will you take it back? To me, that's the most important thing. So I don't know, Sarah, if you caught who said C, but I will definitely send you prizes. So you're running what we call the very best expression of the program. We don't run this full best practices everywhere we are. So if you think, for example, a senior living center. So senior living centers at the height of the pandemic were spending an inordinate amount of money on disposables because they were required to use disposables. But once they found out they could use reusables, they started saving a lot of money. But I don't need to send them a collection system because they are not going anywhere. They're not taking their containers home. So they are home. So we run this program in our corporate settings, military settings, university settings. And the reason for that, I do call it closed loop, because as you can see, it's a loop. Depending upon where you are in the pandemic restrictions, sometimes the chef is preparing. I was at a corporation that's using our program. They're still in the mode where the chef's preparing meals. They don't have any buffets out. And then that diner is taking it back to their office in this case and eating it, or a dorm room. They're using the full collection machine for that accountability. It comes back and gets washed, and you continue on that loop. That's where you're going to see the biggest impact. But again, like I said, you're not going to use that full expression if you're at a senior living center. They may just be using the the O2GO container. So let's look at your sustainability impact. Where are all the places, because you're supporters of this program, where are all the places you can make an impact? I like to think of people, profit, and planets, because a lot of people in sustainability world, that's how they express it. We have more quotes than I could ever put on a slide about how much people appreciate the OZZI containers. They're called O2GO, and they've saved hundreds of dollars per day. Interestingly, we didn't even have senior living centers as a market sector before the pandemic, and now they can't get enough of them because they're just saving them so much money, and it makes sense. From a cost perspective, we have a very elaborate Excel spreadsheet. I'd be able to tell you, I didn't before this, exactly how much you spent and when you're going to break even. We put this full program in. University of Wisconsin, Eau Claire, they broke even in 3 months, and they have a huge program running. So, the O2GO container, probably when you add shipping in, is about $5, depending upon what people are spending on their disposables. It's usually about 30 cents. I ran into somebody last week who was spending 76 cents. But essentially, the container is paid for after about 17 uses. And keep in mind, it's been tested for 1,000 uses. So you definitely get a cost savings there. And then if you extrapolate it, and I'll actually show you that later in a study that was done at the University of Wisconsin, you can get some pretty significant savings, obviously, when you're buying in bulk. But to me, this is really where the rubber meets the road. You want to obviously reduce landfill and ocean waste. We were with a client the other day, and before they took on the reusable program, they thought they were using a compostable program, but they were buying compostable, and their waste hauling was not sending it to a compostable. So that happens a lot. You have to check in to make sure that it's going where you need it to go. Obviously, it reduces dependence on fossil fuels because you're limiting deliveries of disposable containers. Saves a lot on waste hauling costs. I'll show you that in a minute. And then just depending upon the type of a disposable somebody's using, it also saves trees and reduces emissions. Any questions at all on some of those core components? So if you look at a study that was done, this was done by the University of Wisconsin-Madison. They put their program in 2018. Believe it or not, they have not purchased any new containers yet. So the containers they purchased, they continue to reuse, even though they passed 1,000 tests. Depending upon use, sometimes a student will stick it in their backpack, it's empty, they'll throw a book on top of it, and bingo, something breaks on it. But other times, if they're used, in and around the cafeteria, so they're really not traveling very far, you can get probably far more than 1,000 uses. So what they did, their sustainability students actually did a very rigorous study. They were looking at the LCA of the program. So they looked at the disposables that they're using and the O2GO reusable that they had already purchased. And they found with their disposables, it was 94.2% kilograms of carbon dioxide greenhouse gas emission. The reusable was 5. And they looked at both from it being manufactured all the way to the end. Water used on the reusable, 73.5 gallons total. On the disposable, 1,821 gallons. So 19 times fewer greenhouse gas emissions and 25 times less water used. Again, that's University of Wisconsin-Madison. If anybody wanted that case study, I'm more than happy to share that with you. Excuse me, my dog was being a pain in the neck, my office coworker. And if I look at waste hauling costs, so one of the senior living centers that we work very closely with, they have 8 facilities in and around Pennsylvania. She was absolutely blown away. So she knew she was going to save money on the delivery and the cost of the disposables, but she didn't realize what she was going to save in waste hauling costs. So this is something I'm always trying to get my arms around. The data in the table is actually from Northwestern University. So once they put the OZZI program in, they were serving per week 5,733 meals. Their pounds of waste by not using disposals was 378. And when they extrapolated it, because they were monitoring it per quarter, essentially it was 3,788 pounds of waste that they avoided using the reusables. And then the senior living center, they said it was equal to 1.3 Olympic-sized swimming pools or 114 cubic feet of waste reduction. That's something that, you know, I've kind of looked up, like, what's the average cost of a cubic foot of waste? You know, it's different in every part of the country, so it's hard to put our arms around. But that's very significant because, you know, you have to then extrapolate that to what are the energy costs and the efficiency costs of doing the waste hauling that you're completely avoiding altogether. So I wanted to look specifically at what you've been doing. And of course, when you put the program in, having no idea, like all of us, that here comes the pandemic and communal dining, you know, is absolutely gone. So I looked up in terms of what you've collected from your O2GO, your OZZI machine. So you've already collected, people have returned 2,318 O2GO are coming back into your machine. So what if it wasn't this? What if it wasn't a reusable container? What would it have been? And that's a lot. And when you think that these are collection numbers when you're not at complete full capacity and people eating, and, you know, will some people go away from to-go dining? Absolutely. You know, I was just at a corporation that was considering it, but now they're going to just completely go back to only in-person dining. They're not going to allow people to take food out. Then I have another one that said they're going to increase their takeout because they were selling more food for people to take their food home for dinner and that. So everybody's going to be a little bit different, but this is extremely impressive given the environment. Another quiz. So what other environmental impacts does a reusable container have over disposables? Reduces landfill and ocean waste. How does that happen? Reduces dependence on fossil fuels by limiting, you know, routine deliveries of disposable containers. Reduces emissions from waste hauling and deliveries. Saves waste hauling costs. Saves trees. All of the above. My chat box is blowing up.
It's pretty consistent.
Yes. So you got to record those names because they're all right. Everybody's right. And of course, it's, you know, all of the above. And really the last thing I really wanted to touch on is our brand new, you know, just announced Take Back program. So these containers have been tested by Ecolab for the 1,000 washes. We never say that. We say that you'll get 300 uses out of it. And if you've already paid for it in 17 uses, anything above that clearly is a bonus to you. But it's something that we were all very concerned about, is that once it does reach its end of life, whenever that might be, nobody wants to leave plastic in the universe, right? You don't want to leave more plastic. And the other thing that is extremely powerful to us is that it's number 5, it's recyclable. So why would we leave it out there? You can't sell it for as much as you used to. It used to be very lucrative. The city of Los Angeles used to make, not exaggerating, about $13 million a year selling their number 5 recyclable. They sold it to China. Now he has to pay somebody $5 million to take it away. So what we decided to do, we partner with FedEx for all of our deliveries, is that we partnered with FedEx to take it back. So let's say 50 of your containers need to be, they're at end of life for whatever reason. You go to order 50 more containers, you put the 50 that are bad in a box, ship it back to us for free. So what we want to do is take any kind of barrier that you would have. If you can't find someplace in your town, maybe you can sell it in your town. I was somewhere 2 weeks ago and they're selling theirs, which is fine with me. But if we just don't ever want it left out anywhere, so we'll take that back. And essentially what happens, it's called the O2GO High5 program, closed loop take back program. What we ask you to do is just to clean them, dump them out, peel those barcode labels. That's what works in the OZZI machine. If you don't, obviously we'll have to. We'll clean them again. And then essentially you can see this ground material, we'll grind them down. And then we've worked with the FDA so that we don't make them into other O2GO containers because you can't with food use, but we've just come out with a brand new line of reusable cutlery, and that can all be made out of this material. It's got FDA approval on that. So again, our biggest thing is we don't want to leave any plastic, any recyclable material out there anywhere. Any questions at all on that program? In the last few minutes, I'll just spend some time on some studies that have been done on the program, in addition to some of the things that I've showed you. So the U.S. Army, their Brooke Army and Medical Center, they use this on a lot of their bases, not campuses, on their bases. Here's an example of a program. So at Brooke Army Medical Center, they provided this data for us in 2019. They bought 3 of the OZZI machines and 1,000 of the containers. That's a little overkill on the collection side because an OZZI machine will collect about 1,500 containers. They bought 1,000 containers. So clearly they don't need 3, but they strategically wanted to put them near different entrances. And what they found after their expense is about $50,000 for their entire program, that they were completely break even at 3.5 months. So the whole program had paid for itself. And then in disposables, they were saving over $25,000 per month. So they actually had a savings. And that, again, if anybody wanted a copy of that, I'm happy to share it with you. This was the University of Wisconsin study. I already shared with you the greenhouse gas emissions, the less water used. And they found, based on what they were paying for, that they were saving for them about $88.40 in disposables based on the type of disposables they were using. Everybody uses a different kind. I've had people say mine are 10 cents, and I had the country club say mine are 76 cents. That must be a really nice disposable. University of California, all the California school systems, they're going zero waste. It was 2024, I think, because of the pandemic, they pushed it to 2025. UC San Diego, they won our Earth Day contest last year. They said, quote, the OZZI reusable container program has been a vital part of helping us go zero waste. Since the launch of the program on November 10th, 2020, they diverted 250,000 single-use containers. And their goal for this Earth Day contest is they want to divert 1.25 million single-use containers. Pretty big campus. There's the Senior Living Center that I mentioned. The 1.3 Olympic size swimming pool in terms of waste averted. The most revolutionary part, excuse me, my coworker again is being difficult. The thing that makes what you're doing different, and I think is so important, is that nobody could say to you that you're leaving plastic in the universe, because you do participate with a program that will take it back. And the second thing, we've known, I have a company that's actually going to be moving over to us, I think June 1st is their date. They originally just bought reusable containers. They didn't pay any attention to collections as a corporation. They just assumed their employees would do the right thing. I know the woman very well now because we've been working together for a year. It's going to be a humongous program. It goes across 8 buildings in Washington, D.C. And she said she finds them in the ladies' room. She finds them in the boardroom. She finds them in trash cans because nobody ever educated them. You know, you invested in the OZZI machine, and that's what makes this program and what you're doing different, because those O2GOs, when you look at this combination of both the machine and the take back, the whole goal is that the plastic never ends up out there in the trash in any form. we see with those using this machine, they get about a 98.5% retention of their containers, and then the containers come back. So that's kind of everything in a nutshell. Sarah, I hope I covered what you wanted. My last plug is just an ad to make sure that you submit your program to our Earth Day contest, because I'd like to see you guys win all the prizes.
Amazing. Thank you so much. I love seeing all these case studies. And just to reiterate to everyone on the call, UTM has 2 machines. One is in Oscar Peterson Hall outside of Coleman Commons, and the other machine is outside the Davis Food Court. So if you've been around our food service locations, you've likely seen towers of these green reusable containers. And the process is very simple. I'm including the link to the page on our website on how to get involved in the chat now. But essentially what you do is when you order your food, you tell them you'd like it in an OZZI container. And then when you're paying for your meal, you will pay for the deposit right there. You can use your flex dollars, or you can use non-flex dollars, regular dollars. Then when you're all done, you go to the machine, scan the barcode and drop it in, and you get your token back. And that token you just reuse. So instead of paying another deposit, you simply use the token. So it's a great system. It's amazing to see these case studies, because we will be one of those case studies one day. It's just a matter of, once everyone's getting back to campus, educating people on this new program and getting people to participate, because as you can see, it makes a huge impact. So thank you so much, Deb. Oh, we have a question here. Is there anywhere we can get the examples of the case studies shown today to share with our coworkers?
Sure. Why don't I just send them to you, Sarah, and you can distribute them?
Will do. That's great. No problem. Anyone else have any questions about the program or the system, the containers, anything around the sustainability element? I love hearing more and more about the closed loop, because you're right, everyone's first thing is, but it's just more plastic, and that is in itself more waste, but it's not when you can reuse it into something that you continue to use and then break down and reuse. So
yeah, we did a lot of research. We work with corporations, universities, military bases, you name it. Some of our restaurants have said, can you do glass? It's just very hard to do a glass container that you can easily transport. You know, when you think about it, it's for to-go meals. People have tried tin. Somebody that we're working with in Newport, Rhode Island, he does use tin containers, but he can't use them for hot foods because you burn your hand holding them. So, you know, I do know all the pros and cons. I think the most important thing is keeping track of it, you know, making sure that you have it under control and you have arms around it, because it's infinitely better than the single-use disposables.
yeah. Great. Well, if anyone has any other questions, you have my contact information. I'm